the sky torn apart. There was no clear omen that day, for Hive Tertius awakened just as it always had during the many years Kael had lived there, beneath a gray sky illuminated by layers of artificial light suspended between colossal spires, while the low, ceaseless rumble of industrial engines echoed up from the depths like the heartbeat of a world long accustomed to exhaustion. Kael was in the mid-residential tier, and he remembered clearly that morning. He was helping his father repair a leaking water pipe that had been dripping for weeks, while his mother prepared breakfast in a kitchen so narrow only one person could turn around inside it. The first thing that felt wrong was not an explosion, but a silence. The silence lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. Then every alarm in Hive City screamed at once, shrill enough to pierce bone. Before Kael could even register what was happening, the floor beneath his feet shuddered violently, as though the entire megastructure had been struck by an invisible fist from the outside. His father dropped the wrench. His mother froze, hands still gripping a metal bowl. His younger sister, Lyra, hadn't even had time to cry out before the ceiling lights flickered violently and died, plunging the room into a dim red emergency glow. "Upper levels," his father said quickly, his voice taut like overstretched wire. The upper levels took a hit. Kael didn't have time to ask what had hit them. Another explosion followed, closer this time, ripping through the eastern wall as if it were flesh. A wave of superheated air and metallic dust blasted into the room, making his mother scream as she pulled Lyra behind her. No explanation was needed. Every citizen of Hive Tertius had been raised knowing one truth. When the sky itself trembled, there was only one answer: war. Through the narrow, rectangular windows meant only to filter artificial light, Kael saw the sky being torn apart by streaks of green and red fire. Imperial defense craft fired desperately upward, their shots vanishing into a storm of descending shapes. Massive, crude vessels crashing through the atmosphere like falling meteors. Their hulls were daubed with crude black symbols, jagged and savage, markings even a child could recognize. "Orcs. Orcs," his father whispered, and for the first time in Kael's life, he saw fear in the man who had always seemed unbreakable. Within minutes, the vertical transit shafts of the hive began collapsing as massive lifts were struck and plummeted downward, dragging hundreds of screaming souls into the depths below. Last gun fire echoed from distant levels, at first disciplined, controlled, but soon breaking into chaotic, panicked bursts like the dying cries of an army that knew it was losing. His father didn't hesitate. He ordered them to move, to take whatever they could carry. Kael remembered how tightly his father gripped his hand, painfully so, while his mother clutched Lyra and whispered frantic prayers to the Emperor, as if faith alone could shield them from what was falling from the sky. The residential corridors became rivers of panic. Faces once familiar were twisted with terror. Kael saw a man stumble over a child's body and get trampled without anyone stopping, because in that moment morality had no place. Only survival remained. The next explosion came too close. Kael would never forget it. The world ahead of him vanished in a blinding white flash, followed by a crushing force that slammed into him like a wall. He was thrown backward, smashing into a metal bulkhead before collapsing to the floor, half conscious. His ears rang, his vision swam. For several seconds he didn't even remember who he was, until his mother's scream tore through the haze and dragged him back into reality. The wall ahead was gone. In its place was a smoking crater, molten fragments raining down like embers. His father lay thrown forward, motionless in an unnatural angle. His mother knelt beside Lyra, who no longer moved. Kael didn't remember screaming, only that his mouth was open and his chest burned as he crawled toward them, hands shaking, mind empty. The heat scorched his skin. Then came a sound, deep, guttural, alien. Kael looked up just in time to see a massive green shape hauling itself over the rubble at the end of the corridor, a crude gun clutched in its claws, a mouthful of jagged teeth split in a brutal grin. And in that moment, one truth became painfully clear. If he stayed, he would die, just like his family. There was no heroic resolve, no vow of vengeance, no noble farewell. Kael ran, not because he wanted to live honorably, but because his legs moved before his heart could object. He ran through collapsing corridors, past torn bodies and dying screams he refused to look back at, because every time he slowed, the image of his family's still form surged into his mind, driving him forward like death itself was breathing down his neck. Behind him, Hive City Tertius was being crushed layer by layer beneath orc boots and imperial failure. And in that blind, panicked flight, Kael understood something with terrible clarity. His old world was gone. And he survived it, not because he deserved to, but because he was just a little faster than the others.